Does that make? Oops, forgot to do that.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's
So-
okay. It was only recap.
So that case, let's read 21 through 24.
I'll read it. He will be, this is 11, right? We're on
Yes.
11, 21. Okay, he will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and a prince of the covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, wealth among his followers. He will plot the overthrow of fortresses, but only for a time.
So the angel tells Daniel after the brief reign, and what you just described is the battle between the king of the north and king of the south. So the angel tells Daniel that the brief reign of the former king of the north, the next king of the north would be very vile, and he would not be regarded as royalty, and he takes his power by intrigue. And this was fulfilled in Antiochus IV, or Antiochus Epiphanes. He didn't come to the throne legally. His brother Seleucus the fourth or the sixth, can't remember which one. He was assassinated by one of his previous Senate rulers or what have you in his own province here. So Antiochus seizes the throne for himself, proclaiming himself the co-king, co-regent, with Seleucus the fourth's infant son, who was the next heir. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
A few years later, Antiochus kills the son, and he's pretty much the main and only king of the north.
He kills a toddler?
Yes. These people are ruthless. Absolutely.
They are
This
disgusting.
guy was particularly ruthless.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
isn't he the one who decimated the Jews?
yeah, he does. He does. So he maintains, made mention in that passage that you read, he seems to maintain a good relationship with Rome, who was the political giant. He secures a treaty of friendship with Rome, helped by the fact that he had come to power with the help of Rome's principal ally. And it's called Katara or something like that. We don't know the nation, who they would be, but it's one of Rome's allies put him into power. He used flattery, smooth promises, and intrigue. So somebody want to show, or somebody want to read 25.
Sure, I will. With a large army, he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south. The king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army, but he will not be able to stand because of the plots devised against him.
Now, we're in year 170 BC. The king of the south declares war on the king of the north. Now, that seems weird, right? So the south is coming against the north on the assumption that because Antiochus murdered an infant nephew, whom we just mentioned, that his kingdom was divided. So the south declares war on the north here. However, Antiochus prepared more thoroughly and launched a preemptive strike against the south, defeating him and seizing a city of Pelusium in Egypt. He advances into Egypt, conquering, and I'm going to show you this before I tell you. So I'm going to show you the picture so you kind of understand what's going on here. Okay, you can see that, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
So we have the king of the north in the area where it says kingdom of Syria goes against the Ptolemaic Egypt down below. They conquer this city called Pelusium. Do you see that down below?
Yeah.
Okay, so we find that they seem to have greater success than they pretty much ever had up to this point. I think they even capture, and I don't have access to my notes because I'm sharing my screen here. They even capture the king of Egypt, who is, I don't know, Ptolemy 6 or 5 or something like that. And they almost get to this city way over here called Alexandria,
Uh-huh.
and they don't go that far. I don't know why they don't, but they captured their king in Memphis and they leave him there as a puppet of the king of the north. Okay. Now, see this island right here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to play a part because that's part of the king of the south's kingdom, king of the south's kingdom. So I think that's called Cyprus. Cyprus is part of the south, but at this point we find that the captured king is allowed to remain on his throne in Memphis, and the north, who doesn't want to draw too much attention, leaves him there in hopes that, he'll basically be a puppet, but they've gotten further than they ever have had up to this point.
Huh.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my notes here. Where the heck they are.
Mhm.
Okay. So he grabs that city in Egypt. He conquers it all. He even captures the South's king. He doesn't want to tick Rome off, so he leaves him there. The problem is when Antiochus leaves Egypt and goes back to the north, the people of Alexandria choose a new king. And it's one of Ptolemy's brothers, named Ptolemy the Eighth. They could think of a new name.
how original.
Yeah, I know, right? The brothers agree to rule jointly instead of fighting a civil war. Okay, so that brings us up to verses 26 through 28.
I'll read. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will still come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. He will take action against it and then return to his own country.
So as we saw in the map, we saw he retreated from Egypt for his own reasons and went back through Jerusalem area back to the north. Antiochus comes home with a lot of substance from Egypt. He goes into Jerusalem and he begins to sell the office of the high priest in Jerusalem. And he begins to persecute Jewish people to conform to the Greek culture, which forsakes the faith and traditions of their father. So a lot of the Greek stuff is pushed out onto the people in Jerusalem and probably in Israel in general, but and they get a fake, or he puts his own person on the throne. And one of the things that Greek is known for was homosexuality. We're going to see that mentioned very soon. So somebody read 29 and 30.
I'll read it. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from what it was before. Ships of the western coast will oppose him, and he will lose heart. Then he will turn back and vent his fury against the Holy Covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the Holy Covenant.
So these two verses describe 2 years later, Antiochus, and this brings us up to 168 BC, the king of the north, turns around and attacks the king of the south in Egypt. And he sends a fleet from, I guess, Syria or one of these towns along the coast in where the king of the north is, to that little island that I showed you a little while ago, which in my Bible it's called Kittim, which is a word for Cyprus. So he sends the fleet to Cyprus, but before he reaches Alexandria, and I'm talking about Antiochus, who's now going back to Egypt to attack the city that it wasn't able to get, Alexandria, that was on the map. Before he reaches there, his path is blocked by a single elderly Roman ambassador named Popilius, and who delivers a message from the Roman senator telling Antiochus, the king of the north, to withdraw his armies from Egypt and Cyprus and any land owned by the king of the south, or if he didn't, Rome would consider him in a state of war. Antiochus said he would discuss it with his councils, whereupon the Roman ambassador drew a line in the sand around Antiochus and said, before you leave the circle, give me a reply that I can take back to the Roman Senate. This implied Rome would declare war if Antiochus, the king of the north, stepped out of the circle without committing to leave Egypt, or the king of the south. So if he didn't leave immediately, that would happen. So weighing his options, Antiochus decided to withdraw, and only then did Popilius agree to shake hands with him. So from this point on, there's no doubt Antiochus Epiphanes took his orders from Rome and was under Roman dominion. And he turns around and heads back to Syria, but takes out his anger on rebellious Jerusalem. So let's read 31.
His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set abomination that causes desolation.
So Antiochus is returning home with a whole bunch of treasure, I believe. He's still got the riches, but he's leaving Egypt. He returns home with great plunder. It soothes his wounded pride. So according to we're going to read just a short passage in the book of Maccabees. Meg, that's from, where'd she go?
Wait, Mike's not there.
She walked away.
We're going to read this little passage from Maccabees, which is either in chapter 1 or chapter 2. While Antiochus had been in Egypt, just so there's a lot of history that's not explained in these passages. While he had been in Egypt, in Judea, a rumor had spread that Antiochus had been killed. In Judah, like I had made mention a few minutes ago, the high priest Antiochus had given out to somebody that was favorable to him. The guy who had been deposed, his name is Jason. Jason gathers a force of 1,000 soldiers and makes a surprise attack on Jerusalem.
From Judah.
Well, within Judah, the guy who had been the high priest, who had been like thrown to the wayside.
Oh, Jerusalem.
The high priest in Jerusalem, who Antiochus had thrown to the wayside to put his own guy on the throne. He gathers 1,000 soldiers and he fights against the new high priest. So there's this fight going on internally within Jerusalem between these high priests and their forces as Antiochus is heading back with a very wounded pride, and enraged by his defeat, and this is Antiochus, he attacks Jerusalem, he restores his high priest, and he executes many Jews.
Oh my God.
Okay. So when these were reported to the king, Antiochus thought Judah had been in revolt. So raging like a wild animal, he sets out from Egypt and takes Jerusalem by storm. He orders his soldiers to cut down without mercy those whom he meets, and to those who took refuge in their houses. There was a massacre of young and old, a killing of women and children, slaughter of virgins and infants. In the space of 3 days, 80,000 were lost.
Wow.
40,000 meet a violent death, and the same number being sold into slavery. And that's from Second Maccabees 5:11-14.
Now,
Oh my
that's a
God.
history, that's history capped by a Jewish sect, right? The sect of the Maccabees.
Yeah, the Maccabees, that's
Hi.
there she is. The Maccabees were the group that revolted against Antiochus and what he was doing to their culture. I don't even think their name was Maccabees. I think it's a slang that.
Wait, who were they again? Say that again.
Well, in essence, what was happening, there was modernism from the Greek world spreading into their beloved, their beloved religion.
They were
And
Jews.
Yeah, the Jews. And so some of the Jews were traditionalists who would fight against this increasing spread of modernism within their religion.
Right.
So when they saw an opening, the traditionalists went after the appointed head of the, what do they call him, the high priest that Antiochus had put in, and they started to fight him.
Okay.
Once Antiochus found this out, he's already ticked off, he really storms them with anger. Now, let me just read real quick some of the things that haven't been mentioned that'll make sense in just a second.
Okay.
He plunders the city of Jerusalem. This is Antiochus. He bans circumcision.
Oh my gosh.
He builds a fort in the middle of Jerusalem to keep the people, under control. He starts burning copies of the Torah.
Mm.
He kills the 80,000 men, women, and children. He takes 40,000 prisoner. Many he sells into slavery. Under the guidance of his high priest, he goes into the sanctuary uttering blasphemous language. He takes away all the gold, silver vessels he could find, including the gold table, altar, candlestick, that he doesn't leave anything behind. He even searches subterranean vaults,
Oh my gosh.
collecting gold that he found there. He sacrifices swine on the altar. He boils a piece of flesh and sprinkles the whole temple with the broth. The main event comes when he deliberately profanes the second temple. That's the rebuilt one that they went back and rebuilt. He places an idol of Zeus on the altar and orders the sacrifice of the pig to the rededicated temple to Zeus.
So he doesn't live long?
Antiochus? I don't know, Dee, because all its primary focus is what it does to God's people, not what
Gotcha.
happens to Antiochus.
Both Judah and in Israel, because they weren't one yet, were they?
I think that Jerusalem is where the temple is.
But Judah and Israel were separate.
Jerusalem's in Judah.
Okay. So he did all this to Judah, or he did it to both of them?
As far as I know, he did it into Jerusalem where most of the people live.
I think that there was one place where the Jews were congregated in Jerusalem. Hi,
Hi, Matt.
Maddie.
Matt, you're on mute.
It was Jerusalem. It was this area. That was the restoration area, right? I don't
Okay,
think
just
there were
Jeru-
two separate.
Yeah, the temple's in Jerusalem.
Okay.
So whether he went into every city and did the same thing that maybe like Bethlehem, which is close by, or Bethany, I have no idea, but it just makes mention of the main
Okay.
temple.
I'm just wondering.
So the general thought is after this verse, what was the last verse, 31?
Mhm.
We're getting to the point where the Antichrist figure is mentioned. So we have the desecration of the old temple, the holy place, and the sanctuary in the second temple. And then the And then we see the beginnings of the desecration, or the hinting of the desecration, what probably be in the New Testament sanctuary and holy place. Which we would say, where would that be again? Where's the new temple sanctuary and holy place?
Yes.
Anybody?
Mhm.
Us, yeah, us.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So it does hint at this. So what we'll do is we'll take a break, and then hopefully we can get through 32 through 45, I think. It shouldn't take too long.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll see you in a minute.
all
All right.
right.
bye.